Hi, it's Grandmama Doris. This time we're up to Chapter 7 in the Lemonade War. Such a wonderful book. Let's get started on Chapter 7. Evan was in trouble. So far, he had earned $47.11, which is more money than he'd ever had in his whole life. But today was Friday. There were only 3 days left. 3 days to beat Jesse. He needed to earn almost $53 to win that bet. And that meant that each day he had to earn. Evan tried to do the math in his head. 53 divided by 3. 53 divided by 3. His brain spun like a top. He didn't know where to begin. He went to his desk and pulled out a piece of paper, his basketball schedule from last winter, and flipped it over to the back. He found the stub of a pencil in the bottom of his desk drawer, and then he wrote 53 divided by 3. He stared and stared at the equation on the page. The number 53 was just too big. He didn't know what to do. Jesse would know what to do, he muttered, scribbling hard on the page. Jesse could do long division. Jesse had her multiplication facts memorized, all the way up to 14 times 14. Jesse would look at this problem and she would do it in her head, just like that. Evan felt his mouth getting tight and his fingers gripped the pencil hard as he scribbled dark storm clouds on the page. His math papers from school were always covered in X's. Nobody got as many X's as he did. Nobody. Draw a picture. Mrs. DeFazio's voice floated in his head. She had always reminded him to draw a picture when you couldn't figure out how to start a math problem. A picture of what? He asked to himself in his head. Anything, came the answer. Anything? Yes, anything, as long as there are 14 of them. Dollar signs, Evan decided. He decided to draw dollar signs. So he started to draw 3 rows of dollar signs. 1, 2, 3, he counted. By the time he reached 53, his page looked kind of like this. There were 17 dollar signs in each row, and then those extra 2 dollar signs left over. Evan drew a ring around the 2 extras. 17 dollar signs, and 2 left over. Evan stared at the picture for a long time. He wrote Friday next to the first row, Saturday next to the second row, and Sunday on the last one. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Evan looked at the picture. It started to make sense. He needed to make $17 on Friday, $17 on Saturday, and $17 on Sunday. And somehow over the 3 days, he needed to make $2 extra in order to earn the $53 by Sunday evening. Evan felt his heart jump in his chest. He had done it. He had figured out 53 divided by 3. That was a 4th grade problem. That was 4th grade math. And he hadn't even started the 4th grade. And no one had helped him. Not Mom, not Grandmom, not Jesse. He had done it all by himself. It was like shooting the winning basket in double overtime. He hadn't felt this good since the Lemonade War began. But $17 a day, how was he going to do that? Yesterday he had made $45, but that was because he had had help and free supplies from his friends. They weren't going to want to run a lemonade stand every day, especially on the last days of summer vacation. He needed a plan, something that would guarantee good sales. The weather was holding out, and that was for sure. It was going to be about 95 degrees that day. A real scorcher, and people would be thirsty, all right. Evan closed his eyes, and he imagined a crowd of thirsty people, all waving dollar bills at him. Now, where was he going to find all these thirsty people with money to spend? An idea popped into Evan's head. Yep, it was perfect. He just needed to find something with wheels on it to get there. It took Evan a half an hour to drag his loaded wagon out of the town center, a distance that he usually traveled in less than 15 minutes by bike. But once he was there, he knew it was worth it. It was lunchtime, and the shady benches on the green town square were filled with people sprawling from the heat. Workers from nearby stores on their half-hour lunch breaks, moms out with their children, old people who didn't want to be cooped up in the house all day, high school kids on skateboards slooshed by, preschoolers climbed on the life-size sculpture and ended the children playing on the Round the Rosie. Dogs lay under the tree, their tongues hanging out. Pant, pant, pant. Evan surveyed the scene and picked a nice spot, right in the center of the green where all the paths met. Everyone walking across the green would have to pass his stand. And who could resist lemonade on a hot day like this? But first, he wheeled his wagon off to the side, parked it halfway under a huge rhododendron. Then he crossed the street and walked to the Big Dipper. The frozen air felt so good on his skin. It was like getting dunked at the vat of just melted ice cream. And the smells, he thought. A mix of vanilla and chocolate, coconut, caramel, and bubble gum. He looked at the tubs of ice cream, all in a row, carefully protected by a pane of glass. The money in his pocket tingled. He had plenty left over after buying 5 cans of lemonade mix from his earnings yesterday. What would it hurt to buy just one, or a milkshake, or maybe both? "Can I help you?" asked a woman behind the counter. Yeah," said Evan. He stuck his hand in his pocket and he felt of his money. Bills and coins ruffled between his fingers. Money was meant to be spent. Why not spend a little? Evan could imagine just how good that ice cream would feel sliding down his hot throat. Creamy, sweet, like cold, golden deliciousness. He let his mind float as he gazed at the swirly buckets of ice cream. The sound of laughter brought him back onto earth in a hurry. He looked around. It was just some girls he didn't know at the water fountain, but it sounded like Megan Mortarity. "Can you please tell me how much a glass of lemonade costs?" $3, said the woman. "Really?" said Evan. "That much? How big's the cup?" The woman pulled a plastic cup off of a stack and held it up. It was much bigger than the 8-ounce cups that Evan had on his wagon. "Wow, $3, that's a lot," said Evan. "Well, thanks anyway." He started to walk toward the door. "Hey," said the woman, pointing at the ice cream case. "I'm allowed to give you a taste for free." "Really?" said Evan. "Then, I could taste strawberry slam." The woman handed him a tiny plastic spoon with 3 licks worth of pink ice cream on it. Evan swallowed it all in one gulp. Back outside, he got to work. He filled his pitchers with water from the drinking fountain. Then he stirred in the mix. Then he pulled out a blue marker and wrote on the bright piece of paper, $2 per cup, best in town. He had barely finished setting up when the customers started lining up, and they didn't stop. For a full hour he poured lemonade. The world is a thirsty place, he thought, as he nearly emptied his 4th pitcher for the day. And I am the lemonade king. Later, Evan would think of something his grandma had said, "Pride goeth before fall." When Evan looked up, there was Officer Ken. His hands were on his hips, looking down at him. Evan gulped. He stared at the large holstered gun strapped onto Officer Ken's belt. "Hello," said Officer Ken, not smiling. "Hi," said Evan. Officer Ken had did the bike rodeo at Evan's school last year. He was also the cop who had shown up last fall when there was a hurt goose in the recess field. Officer Ken was always smiling. Why wasn't he smiling now? Wondered Evan. "Do you have a permit?" asked Officer Ken. He had a very deep voice, even when talking quietly, like he did now. "You mean like a bike permit?" That's what the rodeo was all about. If they passed the rodeo, the 3rd graders all got their bike permits. which meant they all were allowed to ride their bikes to school. No, I mean a permit to sell beverages or food in a public place. You need to get a permit from town hall, and you have to pay a fee for the privilege. Pay the town hall to run a lemonade stand? Was he kidding? Evan looked at Officer Ken's face. He didn't like what he saw, and he wasn't kidding. I didn't know I needed one, said Evan. Sorry, friend, said Officer Ken. I'm going to have to shut you down, 'cause it's the law. But there are other lemonade stands all over town, said Evan. He thought of Jesse and Megan's lemonade stand when he had wheeled by with his wagon more than an hour ago. Their stand looked like a beehive, with small kids calling all around. I had read the sign over their stand. Free face painting, nail polishing, hair braiding. What a gimmick. But it sure looked like it was working. You know, said Evan, there's a stand on Damon Road right now. You should go bust them. Officer Ken smiled. We tend to look the other way when it's in a residential neighborhood, because right here on the town green, we have to enforce the law. Otherwise, we'd have someone selling about every other foot. But there had to be some way to convince Officer Ken. How could Evan make him understand? You see, I got this little sister, and we got a competition going to see who can sell the most lemonade, and I've just got to win because he explained all the rest about 4th grade and how embarrassed he was that she was in his class and how it made him feel like such a big loser. Evan looked at Officer Ken. Officer Ken looked down at Evan. It was like Officer Ken was wearing a mask, a no smiling I'm not your buddy mask. Then Officer Ken shook his head and he smiled and took his mask off. I've got a little sister too, he said. Love her to death now. But when we were kids, Officer Ken sucked in his breath and shook his head. Whew, he said. Then the mask came back and Officer Ken looked right at Evan for 10 very stern seconds. Tell you what, said Officer Ken, I do have to shut you down. The law's the law. But before I do, I will buy a glass of lemonade. How does that sound? Evan's face fell. Sure, he said, without any enthusiasm. He poured an extra tall cup and gave it to the policeman. Officer Ken reached into his pocket. He handed Evan a $5 bill. Keep the change, he said. A contribution to the Big Brother Fund. Now clean up your things and don't leave any litter behind. He lifted his cup and gave a toast as he walked away. Evan watched him go. Wow, he thought, I just sold the most expensive cup of lemonade in the town. Evan stared at the $5 bill in his hand. It was funny. 2 days ago, he would have felt rich as a king to have that money in his hands. It was enough to buy pizza, 2 slices, and soda with his friends. It was enough to rent a video and have a late night at someone's house. It was enough to buy a whole big bag full of his favorite candy at CVS. 2 days ago, he would have been jumping for joy. Now he looked at the $5 and he thought, that's nothing compared to the $100 he needed to win the lemonade war. $5 was nothing. He felt somehow that he had been robbed. Something, maybe, the happiness he should have felt he wasn't feeling. He loaded everything from his stand and he put it into his wagon, making sure he didn't leave any scraps of litter behind. He still had a glass full of lemonade left in the pitcher, not to mention a whole nother pitcher already mixed up and unsold. So he poured himself a full cup. Then, before beginning the long, hot haul back to his house, he found an empty spot on a shaded bench, and he pulled his earnings out of his pocket. He counted once, he counted twice, very slowly. He had made $65. The cups and the lemonade mixes had costed him $9. When he added his earnings from Wednesday and Thursday, he had $130.11.